I'm Scott Poynton and welcome to another podcast. And here we are with Dr. Boris Gojanovic. Boris is a great mate of mine. He lives just about 100 metres from me. But we're not talking to him about that tonight. Well, we might get onto a bit of our friendship and the things we do together, but more interested in the fact that Boris is a doctor. He's a sports doctor, in fact, at the Swiss Olympic Medical Centre in Geneva. How are you, Boris?
Great, Scott. Nice to have a little chat here.
Yeah, and you've been at work all day?
Yep, sure.
Yeah, we're sitting here in the evening having a chat and we've had dinner. We're not having a glass of wine, but we're going to talk about Boris's work and Boris's life, really, coming to this place of being a doctor. And what we want to talk about also is this whole concept of well-being. And I particularly wanted to talk about this with Boris because this is something I know he thinks a lot about. So, Boris, just tell us a bit about yourself, mate. Gojanovic. It doesn't sound like a particularly Swiss name. I sort of know the backstory, but tell the listeners, mate.
Not really Swiss, no. Actually, it's Yugoslav in origin. So I was born in Switzerland, but both of my parents were from Croatia, which was part of Yugoslavia when I was born. So I was born a Yugoslav, really.
When were you born, mate? How old are you?
1973. So that'd be like 47 now.
47, coming up, a couple of years away from the big one.
Yeah, who counts? Anyway.
Exactly.
But Croatia, and that's sort of my upbringing in Switzerland, but learning about my country of origin, spending my summers there with grandparents and cousins and at the beach because we were lucky to come from a nice area of Croatia on the side of the Adriatic coast.
Beautiful.
So very nice. And grew up speaking Croatian and French, and which makes me a lucky multiple language speaker because I speak Croatian and Bosnian and Serbian because they're all the same language. But when, unfortunately, the country exploded from 1991 onwards, all of these little republics of Yugoslavia became independent.
Right.
And but I mean, I still go there. Matter of fact, I've been there a month ago.
Your mum? Your mum?
My mum lives there.
Still alive?
Yeah. My dad passed away 14 years ago, but my mum's there. She's returned to Croatia.
Yep.
And I very much enjoy going there, and it's a really part of who I am, I guess. So, but Switzerland is multicultural. I mean, it is multilingual, first of all. And there's a lot of people that come from different countries, especially in the 70s and 80s, there are a lot of people that came here. So it's not unusual.
Yeah.
So I'm a secundo, basically second generation foreigner, but living in Switzerland. And then I got my Swiss passport at some stage during my teens. And that was the origin.
And you grew up in Lausanne, so not far from Geneva.
Yeah, Lausanne, great place, great town. My heart's always going to be in Lausanne. And growing up, there was, one passion of mine was sports, I guess, and it was part of the family. My father actually came to Switzerland in 1958 as a basketball player.
Right.
So he was one of the first professional basketball players in Switzerland. And he also ended up working as a physical education teacher and a basketball coach. And as I grew up, I picked up basketball pretty early on. I wasn't very serious about it until I was about 11, I'd say. And then I started playing a bit more. But I have an older brother who's 5 years older, and he was also playing basketball. And he was already, when I got a bit more interested in basketball, he was already very, very good in the country. And that drove me, I guess, a little bit.
Bit of competition.
Trying to walk in his steps a little bit. And so I did a lot of sports and ended up playing basketball actually until I was 30 years old when I retired from basketball.
Played for Switzerland too, right?
Played for the Swiss team, played for the top division in Switzerland for 13 seasons actually. I mean, it's the top division in Switzerland, but it's nothing much in the rest of the world. We're not a very strong country.
Yeah, but you did that. And we should mention that you're about 400 foot tall. You're not a short fella.
6'4".
6'4", yeah. No, pretty tall. And but sports obviously been an important part of your life. But during that journey, tell us about when it occurred to you that maybe being a doctor would be a great career.
Yeah, I don't know. I always have this memory of saying when I was a kid, I wanted to be a dentist.
A dentist?
Yeah. And I had a good reason why I wanted to be a dentist, because I think I had a terrible dentist when I was a kid, and terrible teeth too, probably. And I don't know, so I deserved whatever I got. But it always hurt so damn much.
Right.
And whenever I came out of the dentist, I would always tell my parents, I want to be a dentist, but I want to be a dentist that doesn't hurt people.
Right.
So that was sort of, the legend. But anyways, as time went by, I realized that that's not a part of medicine or that I really wanted to go to, but human medicine is what I wanted to do. And it felt kind of natural. And to be honest, I don't really know why. There's no doctors in my family. So it's just something that was just obvious. I don't know. And I went into that.
Was it when you went in? I mean, you've ended up a sports doctor. Did you go in with that idea? Obviously, you love sports. Was that idea in the back of your mind?
Yeah, I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so. It was really I was about getting into medicine, and the studies are long, so it's 6.5 years in Switzerland. And then when you finish that, you can specialize, and you don't need to necessarily choose right away. I mean, there's maybe a couple of years you can do a bit of this, do a bit of that. I really wanted to be a surgeon. That's what I wanted to be. And during my studies also, and I worked a lot to help surgeons in the operating room. So I did a lot of that during the studies. And then afterwards, for 2 years, I worked in surgery. And I really felt that was my calling. And I loved the idea of just fixing things. Right. You see something's broken and you fix it. And then you repair that, and
people have a different life as a result, right?
Yeah, and I guess there's a bit of I don't know, that vision of medicine where you're able to repair things and that's it. You just do it at that moment in time, and you've done your job, and people are well. Right. So, but as I was doing that, after a couple of years, I realized that I was a little bit bored intellectually. Technically, it was mechanical and it was fascinating to do that, and I loved it. But I felt that I needed to learn a bit more about medicine, and that's how the body works, how the things that you can't fix, that you can't, not the broken bone that you can't fix, but something different. What defines diseases? How do we care for people? How do we understand what's going on? Why is it that some people end up in discourse with their disease and some don't? All these things that make health and disease quite complex, I guess.
Right.
And so I went into that and ended up specializing in internal medicine. So that was that. And during that time, I felt strongly about, emergency medicine and then intensive care. And there was all these things which, everybody, or a lot of medical or young medical doctors go through, the excitement of doing these things.
Emergency places, yeah.
And it was also the time of the emergency shows on TV. And all that. Yeah, that's what it is. But at the same time, I was still a basketball player.
Right.
So throughout my studies and my early years in medicine, I was playing basketball. And so that was something that was really important for me. And at some stage, I had stopped playing basketball because of time commitment with team sport. It was getting difficult. But I continued to do sports, and I started running, and then I started doing triathlons and discovering new sports, which I could manage on my own time a little bit better. And over the course of that, I started doing a bit of research in human physiology and how the body functions, and the heart and the vascular system and all that. And naturally, some of my research went into sports-related stuff. And that's when I realized I do want to work around the notion of, physical activity and health and sports and performance and these things. And I was lucky enough, pushing a little bit, knocking on a few doors to get a position to learn a bit about sports medicine. And there's not a lot of people who do that in Switzerland. So I was lucky to get one of those spots. And that's how the path started, really. Yeah,
and we were talking earlier. Sports medicine, it's not like heart surgery or neuroscience or anything like that. It's a little bit out there. It's a little bit. Don't want to use the word niche, but perhaps that's right. And yet, millions of people around the world, or billions probably, play sport on a regular basis. But as you said, as we've talked in the past, it's not necessarily soon to be a serious part of medicine and stuff like that. Do you want to just talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, and it's one thing that I still I don't struggle with it, but I'm trying to change that perception.
Yeah, a bit
that
surprised
narrative.
about it, I imagine. A bit surprised about it. Like,
Yeah, but it is like that actually, and I really experienced that a lot. Like when you talk to other colleagues and say, well, "What do you do? Sports medicine?" So they feel like you're not really serious. You know?
You're not really a doctor.
Yeah, but what do you do as far as medicine goes? You know, you're not doing this sports thing. This is like a hobby you do on the side, right? And the perception usually from people outside is you're just that guy running on a pitch with a cold spray on the ankle of a footballer who's actually not hurt.
Bucket of water and a sponge.
Yeah, right. And so that's the perception. But actually, there's a lot more to it. And as you say, there's a lot of people doing sports, but there's also a lot more people that try to be or should be maybe a bit more active for their health, that don't integrate enough movement into their daily lives. And very early on, and that might be my medical education in internal medicine, you know, understanding what are the determinants of disease and of well-being, and realizing that movement and a healthy body that's able to move freely is one of the most important determinants. Not just, you know, conceptually, or if you see someone and they can't move properly, you're like, oh, they can't enjoy doing things or going about, and etc. But then I started studying it a little bit more and realizing that, hey, you know, since 1950, we've had piling up, you know, studies that show that people who move more, who are more physically active, have less disease. They have less cardiovascular disease, so that is heart attacks, strokes, but they also have less cancers.
Right.
They have less depression.
Higher quality of life around,
Better
right?
quality of life, and also better longevity. You know, so I mean, this is serious, and this is serious medicine. And that's where at some point I realized my path, my calling in a way, is that someday I'd like people to realize that sports medicine is not just sports medicine, but it's a lot bigger than that. It's something that concerns all of us, and that actually I hope I can bring some valuable information or help to people that either want to go to the Olympics and they want to get better and they have an injury, or they just want to keep enjoying the activities that they do, or they just want to recover their health and they've been ill for some time. They may have diabetes, they may have had cancer, they may be overweight, they may have had a rough time in their life for some period of time, and then they want to get better.
Yeah, so we should make that clear, because I didn't realise until we spoke about it that you're a doctor at the Swiss Olympic Medical Centre, but as well as the athletes, you know, those Olympic athletes that need help and come to see you, I mean, you see everyday patients too, right? Just people who've got an injury and they need help with their injury, and they come in to see you and your other colleagues there at the centre. So it's just has struck me in many of our conversations, which is really why I really wanted to have a chat here, is that you're really focused on well-being, and there's this broader conception of well-being, and medicine obviously is a key part of that. But it's beyond that, and I know that. I mean, I've had the fortune with my dodgy knee to come and see you, and we got that sorted out. But I know that you look at the whole person, and beyond. Oh, okay, this is what the MRI scan looks like. How did your knee get to that condition? And the discussions that we had were all around a broader conception of my overall health and well-being. And well, it worked. And I know from some of the things we've discussed in the past that this is the sort of things that you do, and you look at the whole person. And I'm just fascinated by that. And in the sort of work that so many people do, they get themselves stressed out and run down, and people get burnout, and they do push themselves to the point of heart attack, and they do get overweight, they do have diabetes. And I know, and you've always been, and I know, you've always been very careful in terms of confidentiality, but I just know some of those stories that you've shared with me around patients who have come in a pretty bad way, and not tomorrow, because they've got to do the work too, but over a period of 6, 12, even 18 months, 2 years, they get themselves in a different place. And I think this is fantastic. I love it, and this is the stuff that I'm really interested in. So just talk to me about that, mate. You know, I know we've talked about nutrition and of course there's spiritual practices for people, meditation, you know, a whole suite of things that help them relax, de-stress. Of course, then getting out and doing exercise. It's a whole package that you tend to bring to your work. And yeah, it doesn't, in many ways, like it's way beyond sports medicine. And I'm just fascinated by your work in that. And I'd love you to just share me some of that philosophy that you bring.
Sure. So on which of the 50
let yourself
points
go.
that you just mentioned?
Hashtag let yourself go.
Yeah, I think...
just the philosophy.
Do we have a couple of hours? Or
We can. Well, this is not the last one, perhaps.
I would start with the fundamental mistake of any healthcare system or of medicine in general. And this is something that is not talked about enough. It's not, I'm not inventing anything new here, but we have to understand that the way medicine has evolved, it was very empirical, you know, trying to testing things, trial and error. And really until the 19th century and the second half of the 19th century, you know, the development of the scientific method and medicine, as in medication, pharmacology, developing and treating diseases more and more specifically. First identifying diseases with the help of the microscope, for example, or blood tests, and then complex imaging systems like the MRI, to see ever more tiny things in the body or more precision in the diagnosis. And that's been the promise of medicine, really, you know, that technological advancement and development. And although it has brought many fantastic possibilities and efficient therapies for patients that suffer from these diseases that we identify, it also comes at a high price in general. It's that people have the expectation within society that we'll always find the precise thing that they suffer from. There's always going to be a test to understand why I am feeling these symptoms. Yes,
and then a treatment to fix it.
Exactly. And so, and the more complex the disease or the treatment, the more expensive the solution, right? The medication or whatnot. So actually, if you consider healthcare, we should look at it the other way around. We don't have a healthcare system, we have a disease care system.
Right.
And a real healthcare system would take a step back, understand that there's some specific diseases that we need to identify and we need to treat, but at the same time, we're looking at an individual. We're looking at many different determinants of the health of that individual and the health, and I mean the well-being by that as well. So it's not just the disease-oriented stuff, but it's really, you know, mental health, societal health, well-being and all that. And every person interacts within their environment, close environment, family, friends, work environment, within the region that they live in. So like us in our little village, you know, how people interact or don't. That determines their health a little bit. And then the wider elements of society, you know, the type of jobs we do, the types of pressure we're under, then the world of big media and what it does to us, and how we are influenced and how we're pushed to want some things that are not necessarily leading us to well-being or better health. And so all these things matter. Now I've taken a long path outside of, you know, the disease care model. So that's the first point that I wanted really to make clear about how I'm thinking about health. Is not one specific problem, but it's what's the person like? What are they thinking? What do you want actually?
What's the context in which they live their life? Right.
And the difficult part of this is that if you come to see me and you have a knee pain, you have knee problem, and I do see a lot of people with knee pain that come in.
I bet you do, yeah. Ankles, knees.
And so there's the expectation that I'm going to do some imaging, that I'm going to tell them exactly what hurts. And oftentimes it's not a specific thing. It's just that they haven't been going around doing the right things for their knee and for their health in general, which is moving more, eating better, reducing their stress levels, prioritizing things that are good for them and their immediate environment, as in their family and friends,
Right.
etc. And if you do that, you find out that actually that problem might be solved on its own.
Right.
And sometimes, yes, there's damage to your structure and that could be operated on. And that's why we have, surgeons and people who do fantastic jobs out there. But you've got to take that perspective of the global, the globality of the individual.
Right.
And that's very important. So I can give you an example of a gentleman who came in, was referred to me because he had knee pain. And he already had x-rays done and they showed there's arthritis there. And the gentleman was about 50 years old. And so he was told, you should go see the sports medicine doctor and see if they can do some injections for you, for your knees. And so we have this chat and we're about 45 minutes into the chat. And I see the patient is a little bit, doesn't really get what we're talking about in a way, because it's about my knee, mate,
Yeah.
like
This bit here,
help me out,
I'm swollen or whatever, yeah.
And although I did get to the knee at some point, but by that time he told me, "Well, you're looking at my knee. That's not my problem," because the problem was everything around it. And it was the 150 kilograms was one of the problems.
Sounds like could have been one of the problems, yeah.
So we could think of that as a problem immediately, but then it was to understand how that person perceives their knee problem.
Right.
And for how long has it been going on and what led to that? And then what about the weight and what about the lifestyle?
How did he get to 150 kilograms? Yeah.
Exactly. And then by the time you enter that discussion and then you start asking a few more personal questions about, but what is it that you really want? And oftentimes I see patients in front of me pause, and they're like, they're not expecting that question.
No.
What do you want out of life or something like that?
And 45 minutes, they should have been in there, got an injection, got some tablets and been out after 10, right?
Right.
Who's this guy talking to me?
Exactly. And,
right.
and some countries, and this is very unfortunate, we're lucky in Switzerland that we can take sometimes a lot of time with the patients. Some countries do consultations in 5 or 8 minutes.
Yeah.
You're never going to get the interaction to talk about who that person really is and what they think about their condition and what they think plays into it and how they could approach it.
What they're experiencing in life.
Because at the end of the day, it's not about the solutions I can offer. It's about the solutions you are willing to consider for yourselves, for yourself. And that may include a therapy that's proposed by the doctor or by a physiotherapist or another therapist, for sure. But it is how much you are willing to do the necessary things. And that means understanding what brought all of this, what brought you there. And by saying that, of course, we all understand that sometimes disease is disease, and bad things can happen and nobody's responsible for anything. It's
genetics,
bad luck, and that's what it is. And it's not a matter of responsibility or nobody's guilty of anything, but it's just understanding we can change it. And it is about change. And making change for health-related matters is extremely hard.
Yeah.
Because it's about changing the way you lead your life, the priorities you make, and it's not about taking that tablet. And it's a lot easier to take that tablet.
Mm-hmm. A lot easier for you as well, right?
It's a
Next
lot
customer,
easier.
please.
Exactly. For me, a medical consultation that doesn't end up with the prescription pad handed out to the patient with some medication to take is like not a consultation, right? Something's wrong.
It's a failure.
Yeah. And so, and I guess the goal is to not do that and really to consider all of the other elements. So, but when you learn about medicine, when you go to medical school, you learn about things that lead you down the wrong path. You learn about complex diseases that require medication, and you learn actually the exact dose of a compound to prescribe. And which makes no sense because I can look it up in a second.
Right.
I don't need to know that. And I still know all that, and I don't need to know it. I need to know a lot more about how I can motivate someone, how I can actually listen. Listening is the key.
Right.
But it's active listening. We call that motivational interviewing. There's different types of techniques. Whatever the technique, I don't really care about the technique. Right? We learn techniques so that we have tools a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's not about the technique. It's about the results you can get.
About being human, isn't it?
Exactly. And it's empathy. It's understanding where people come from and how maybe they could be thinking to lead them a little bit to the realization by themselves.
Yeah.
And it's about caring, and caring for someone also means help them care for themselves.
Is this the man that ended up running the Escalade? You told me this wonderful story about.
Yeah, actually, that's true.
Just for the people who are listening to the podcast.
You do remember, yeah.
Yeah, no, there's a wonderful story that just for people to understand. Escalade is this run. Maybe you can tell, Boris. You know about the Escalade more than me.
It's the biggest foot race in Switzerland. It's a short race, actually. It's a 5 or 7.5 kilometer race in the city of Geneva, in the old city. It's up and down on cobblestones. It's in December. It's always really cold. It snows regularly.
It's because the Savoyards invaded Geneva, and I always wonder, and there's a big ceremony around the Escalade, a number of days, and I always wonder, why did the Savoyards invade in December? Couldn't they have done it in July, where we could have been out in our T-shirts? Because we took our kids there and it was always freezing. But go on.
Yeah. It's always really cold.
Yeah.
And anyways, and so that patient who was 154 kilos started on a self-management program in a way. We did help him. I mean, we coached him and we showed him what it is to do some physical activity. We worked with a nutritionist that also helped him introduce better nutrition and care for his nutrition. And within that team, and it's 4 to 5 people that work alternatively to try to bring a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of education on some things, and also help him do it on his own.
Right.
You know? And it was fascinating because he really very early on, he was like, right, he realized he got it. This is it. You know, this is what I need to be doing. And at some point, 30 kilos less, about a year later, he wanted to start running. And so until then, we'd been just doing a bit of walking and cycling. And he said, I want to run. I'm like, all right, we'll get you running. And so we started very cautiously because we didn't want to hurt him.
His knees. And
any injury would mean, halting the activity and the lifestyle change for 6 weeks, 2 months, who knows?
Yeah.
So that wouldn't be good.
No.
So we had to be very careful. But he did a great job. And at some point, he told me, I want to run the Escalade, which is, there's 40,000 people participating in that race. It's really the biggest gathering for a foot race in Switzerland. And I said, all right, I'll run it with you. And so we did. I did go on a run one time with him. And at some stage I told him, you know what, you're ready. We can do that. So we registered. And
that's amazing.
And we ran it together.
Must have been a great feeling.
It was great, and I was happy to see the accomplishment, to see what it meant. It was just huge.
A year previously, he could hardly walk.
Yeah, and it's just the transformation, and for me personally, it's also. I remember him telling me and other people telling me, "Oh, but you're not going to do your race then? How are you doing that?
You need to run your best time or something.
Because you can run faster than that." Yeah, sure, I can, but that's not what it's about. You know?
It's about supporting.
And it's about supporting and being there and offering, what you know and what you can do to help somebody out. And for me, it reminded me also of a bit of a different story, but that was when I used to run more and train more, and that was 10 years ago, 12 years ago.
Ironman triathlon, Boris.
Yeah, I did long stuff, and I enjoyed doing that. And for me, that path also, personally training when I did more sports after basketball, was also very much connected to what I was learning professionally, developing my interest in exercise physiology and how the body functions and what are the limits of the functioning of the body. And so it was interesting because at the same time I was working in intensive care. So I was seeing how the body can be failing.
Yeah.
And this was the ultimate test of human physiology in intensive care, because you have these hearts that are failing, the lungs that are failing, and you're trying to support that. And so you have to really understand physiology. And on the other end, there's the athletes and training, which is the other extreme, and you push the system to the other extreme of performance. So I was doing that to myself a little bit,
Right.
training, understanding how it works. And as I was doing races, you're always happy if you perform better and you lower your racing times
Right.
or whatnot.
PBs.
Fair enough, but at some point somebody asked me it was a half marathon, and they were looking for paces. And so basically what you do, you run with a big balloon attached to yourself, hanging above yourself, with a time on it. And so you're running for people who want to achieve that time in their race.
Mm-hmm.
And so you
sort of
have
drag
to
them along,
pace
sort of
yourself, right? And
Yeah.
for the whole race, and bring them to the finish line. Yeah. And so it was fantastic. It was I didn't know if I wanted to do it, but I said, okay, let's go. And there were about 80 people that were running around, with me, and they were counting on me to bring them home and to achieve what they wanted to within the time that they had set for themselves.
Wow.
And so it's a bit of a different experience than the escalade with my patient, but it's sort of the same philosophy, right?
Helping other people.
And what I realized on that day is that this is one of my best memory of a race. And it wasn't my time or my PB. It was all these people, hanging in and coming at the end and saying, thanks, you helped me, and you helped me achieve what I wanted to. And so, and that was a long time ago, but I still think that it sort of defined some things. It was part of it.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, mate, you must also see people who come in and you have these discussions with them, and they don't make the commitment. They don't make that journey. Tell us a bit about that. How does that make you feel? And I guess, you can only help so much. You can only give them advice and context. But when you see people come back again and again and again, and they're just not making that progress, what's that feeling?
Yeah. When I first started thinking about this concept of the determinants of your well-being and how you can find things that are actionable for your health, I would I did a bit of mind mapping and say, okay, there's the current physical health, there's the motivation that somebody has, there's how fit they are, there's what kind of disease they have, there's the type of nutrition that they have, there's do they sleep well, are they under a lot of stress, do they have outside support around them, etc.
What's their family situation?
And you do that mapping and you're like, okay, well, we need to tick all those boxes, right? And obviously there's physical activity, which is the number one thing for me, I guess, because I'm a sports and exercise medicine doctor. So when people come to me, oftentimes, first of all, they'll come because their GP sent them or somebody else told them, you should go and see that guy. And they come in and say, I'm not really sure I'm where I should be, right? Because you guys are this Olympic
Swiss
thing.
medical, Olympic thing, yeah.
Like, what am I doing here?
Right.
And I'm like, don't worry, I think you're in the right place. That's all right. And so I try to diffuse that a little bit first,
yeah.
and then we start talking. But over the years, I guess over the last 5 years, what I've realized is that you can have people that are very motivated to change their nutrition, to change their physical activity levels. Some of them start training a lot, actually. They overdo it.
Right.
And I tell them, we're going to start slow, and they want to do more, and they're happy to get a coach and do this and that. And they jam all that in their day, which is already busy. And you can't make your day really longer.
Right.
So they pack it in, and it doesn't work. And they do that for 3 months or 6 months. And if they want to lose weight, they're not losing weight. And they tell me, I'm doing 4 hours of sports a week, and I've made all these efforts on my nutrition, etc., and I'm not losing weight. How's that possible? Well, it turns out that I think as long as you don't care for yourself by recovering better
Right.
and by reducing your stress levels, you're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
Because all of these things that you're doing, you're actually adding stress.
Yeah.
And you're not recovering.
Yeah.
And now when we talk about weight loss, and this could be another discussion on its own, there's this understanding sort of that, calories in, calories out, and everything balances out. And if you eat less and exercise more, you should lose weight. Well, guess what? Big news. It doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work like that. All right. Things are dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Your metabolism adapts. You eat less, it adapts. It'll survive on the less food that you bring, and you won't lose all of your body weight. So
you see people starving themselves, don't you? And that creates its own stress.
It can,
and anxiety.
Of course, it does create stress, and quite physiologically so.
Right.
You get this.
You can measure it, right?
Problem with the autonomic nervous system, and you can measure these things, and you see that they're on a very high stress level, just because they're starving their system, and they're not recovering sufficiently. Now, obviously, it's hard to keep things in balance like that, but sleep is number one. All right, and if you decide you get up 1 hour earlier regularly during the week because you want to do your exercise,
do a run or something, Yep.
It's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Very rarely is it going to work. And there's exceptions where people, do it, and then they restore a bit of balance with a bit of less sleep, but usually it doesn't work. So the other thing is, how do you address stress? That's not an easy one. Okay, I don't have tablets for stress reduction.
Right.
Medicine thinks there is such a thing, right? There's a lot of medication to reduce stress, actually, right? So you can pop a pill and you're de-stressed.
Everyone's
instantly,
a winner.
Right?
Yeah.
So, all right, and you've got that whole industry of tablets, and unfortunately it's supported by a lot of well-meaning people and doctors also who prescribe them, the prescription pad again, as a solution, but they're not a solution. They may be used temporarily, and that's fine. I'm fine with that. But you've got to ultimately understand why. Why is there all that stress?
Why is it there in the first place?
Yeah, and that, there's some introspection that's necessary there.
Mm-hmm.
You got to look into what is it that matters every day for you? What are you imposing on yourself? We're all doing that, and I got to keep myself in check regularly, and God knows I probably don't. And if my wife was hearing this, she would say, you're not doing it.
You'd get in big trouble, mate.
So, but we have to be conscious of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're probably coming to the end of what we could talk for hours, Boris, I think. I find it so fascinating. And I know that you're doing so much. You do your consultations, you work with your patients, but you're doing so much outside of the day-to-day work that you're doing. You do a lot of speeches, you do a lot of podcasts, you do a lot of presentations. I mean, what's the stuff that's capturing you now? Where do you think medicine and sports medicine's going? What's I know you bring a very deep philosophy for this. I know you read very widely. You write a lot of papers. What's for people out there who are listening to the podcast who are probably living their life. I know so many people live their life under so much stress. Where do you see all of your work in medicine going? You're really branching out. I mean, you're really pushing. My sense is you're pushing boundaries. You're learning a lot. Where do you think that, I guess, medicine might be, and this sort of medicine might be in 5 to 10 years' time? And where do you think you'll be, mate? What do you think you'll be working on?
It's a tough question.
Who knows, right?
To be honest, that's part of my problem, I guess, is that I am curious. Okay, so I want to know about other things, and I want to branch out a little bit and read something different, and it'll always trigger some kind of an idea, and which makes me a terrible researcher. For example, I've done a fair bit of research and I've published papers and whatnot, but if you were to look at what I've done, you can't see. If you're a science-oriented person, you can't see a common thread.
Right.
You're going to see it, but you've published on this and then on that and on that. It doesn't make any sense. to me, it does make sense.
Yeah, what's your common thread? What's the common thread that you see, mate?
The common thread is movement for health. And yes, there's a bit of performance in it, but I'll put health first. And so some of the things I've done are to understand how the body functions within high-performance sports. Some others are to understand how we manage interdisciplinary communication between different healthcare professionals. And those are very different things, right? This comes with a reflection on management, on leadership, on communication. And that stems from a lot of things that I've opened myself to, reading, watching. Maybe an interesting thing that opened my mind to communication and how we are in sales in a way. You know, there's a lot of things that we need to understand how to motivate someone to action a change. And I was watching the show Mad Men, for those of you who know it, which is based in 1960s in the US, and it's an ad company. And so it was fascinating to see how they approached complex environments with messaging so that they could get their message through. And you may not think that relates to medicine, but it does every day.
Right.
Because every day I have somebody in front of me who needs to be convinced on their own that they want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, but to do that, you've got to have the right information. So you can't just convince someone with hot air.
Right.
You got to be, and I want to stay true to science in a way, and to bring in my experience of these other elements. Now, that doesn't answer your question about the next 10 years. I guess there are some things that I'm working on, and I want to have an impact. I want to see change. One thing that I'm working on currently is abuse in sports and adolescent athletes. And that's a huge thing, and it's a huge concern of mine, and it is of everyone, obviously. Mm-hmm. But not everyone enough, because otherwise we wouldn't have it.
Right.
So, and there's things that need to be done, and that's a huge challenge, and I'm working on that currently. That's one thing. The other thing is, as I said earlier, I would like the rest of the medical world to realize that sports medicine is maybe a misnomer. We shouldn't call it like that. You know, it should be maybe movement medicine or movement for health, and nothing very sexy, no real brand there.
Right.
And that's a bit of a problem. But it's how do we bring those notions of self-care and confidence through better physical fitness, which is a very important element, probably one of the most important element, if you can get there. How do we bring that? How do I bring that and my colleagues within academia, within medical schools, within physiotherapy schools and other healthcare practitioners? And we're slowly getting there. And maybe one thing COVID is helping with is that, because of all the restrictions all over the planet that we're experiencing, some people more than others, there's always been the exception for people to go out and to exercise and do some physical activity.
Very true.
And this is actually quite an achievement. Mm-hmm. This would never have happened 10 or 15 years ago. So there's an awareness of the importance of that. And I think we're going to hopefully be able to use that, as tragic as the whole situation is on many counts. I think that's one thing that we're going to maybe be able to use. So I'd like to see these things be taught earlier on the curricula of different professions. And if we can do that, I think we're going to have better practitioners. And on the other hand, in the world of sports, I'm also involved in lecturing and also in sports management, for example, programs in sports management. And I'd love all these future sports managers to remember, once they get in a position to make a decision, and there's decision A or B, and A involves some economic reasons, and B has a bit of a more of a health concern for the athletes and the well-being of the entourage, etc. I would love them to choose that, because they'll remember some of the chats we had in class. So those are the things that I hope to achieve an impact on. And then it's mentoring, and it's just seeing the next generation. And I'm 47. I'm not old, I guess, and I don't consider myself old, but I would love to see, and I do see, and I'm lucky to see some younger people pushing and asking questions and being curious and challenging. And I'm like, go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead. Everything. Challenge me again and again, and the others, because there's so many things we can do better.
Yeah. It's great to have you out there, Boris. And, it lifts me up every time we talk about these things and hear these stories. And because, I'm really fascinated by this whole question of well-being myself, having pushed myself way too hard at work and got, too much stress. I can see just how important this is for life in general, family life, achieving things at work, and for people who are just trying to make loads of money, maybe they might dial that back and do less harm in the planet, for example, because they think more broadly around overall questions of well-being. So I think what you're doing is really core for trying to make the world a better place. I really do. And you're doing it person by person. And I guess it might feel sometimes like slow progression, but I know as you talk to these broad people, that the students coming through, the papers you're writing, absolutely guarantee you're influencing a lot of people. So good on you, mate. I'm glad you're doing that. And please, we'll talk to you again and get an update on how you're going. So thanks so much for talking to us, Boris.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. There's a lot more to be done, but the last thing I can say is every time I see someone who starts on a path of change and who sees the benefit, I see that face light up.
Yeah.
And I see that feedback that we get says, I didn't realize I could do this, but I'm never going back now.
Yeah.
And that brings me energy for the next 12 months, I guess.
Right, you only just need one, right?
So for all the people out there, we all have it in ourselves to do a bit of a change on some things. There's so many things we know we should be doing differently, and we should care for ourselves and our family differently, and we should be more active, and we should take care of ourselves in a better health kind of way. We all know this, but start doing it today, little by little, and find out there's other people around you that want to do this, people that can help.
Might do it with you.
And yeah.
Might run the escalade with you.
Exactly. And then do it with somebody else, and that's a great way to change.
A lot of fun, a lot of motivation. Thank you, Boris.
All right.
Cheers,
Thanks,
mate.
Scott. Cheers.